Good evening and welcome. I'm Bob Pace. I'm your host. And tonight's podcast is to fight CPS and stop taking our children. And I want to welcome all you parents, anybody that's concerned about CPS. Even if you're a CPS worker, I welcome you. Because what I'm going to tell you is my experiences and experience of over 100 some people across the country in their own little counties, their own little worlds. And I hate to tell you that CPS is a disappointment. And before I get started, I would like to tell a couple things about some ground rules here on this podcast. If you want to text a comment, I love them. I love to have comments from you all, and I'll try to answer them as quick as I can. All you need to do is put your name and the city and state. And if you're from another country, you're welcome. I've had Canada, Australia, United Kingdom, Ghana, and Mexico text messages to me on here. And so the world has CPS problems, and so does the United States. And it's a big one. It's a big problem. And it needs to be fixed. Children are not being protected, and CPS social workers are abusing the system and making a lot of money off our children. They're trafficking our children. They're stealing our children. They're alienating our children from parents. They treat parents like dirt. They abuse parents. They're not nice. They're not courteous. And it's the most deception organization I've ever known in my 74 years of existence. It started. CPS did start. It started in the 1853s to take care of children in New York. And of course, it spread around all the other states, where now it's supposed to take care of children from neglect and abuse and also do family reunification. And I meant that, family reunification. They forgot about that one. It isn't about stealing a child or keeping foster care or making money. That's all I hear. That's all I hear. So besides texting a message, you can be a guest on my show. Right now, you can call in at 626-698-0990. And you can, that's my office phone, and I'll put you live on speakerphone, and you can talk about your case. Every night, I seem to get new people all the time, all about different. I don't know, there is some similarity, and it's where they abuse parents and steal the children. And the children are being abused in foster care. That isn't the answer. That isn't the answer. Now, if you not want to talk on the show or you want to talk on the show later, I do have guests from time to time, and I'd love for you to be on my show. There are 14 podcasts 7 days a week. They start at 10 o'clock in the morning, go for an hour Pacific Standard Time, and 7 o'clock at night and go for an hour Pacific Standard Time. I want all you that are listening out there to understand that CPS is not your friend. CPS does not want to give back your children. So if you like to talk about your story, I'd love to have you. All you do is write an email to my producer, Grace@VincentWDavis.com. Grace@VincentWDavis.com. And she will gladly put you on one of my 14 shows. You just say Sunday morning, Thursday evening, whatever day of the week, it's morning or evening. And you can be my guest on my podcast. And we talk about CPS matters. Anything related to CPS is what the forum is about. And I talk to anybody. I'm not exclusive in there. A lot of people are nice and courteous to each other. Now, this show is produced by Vincent W. Davis and Associates, and I want to thank Mr. Davis for this show. If you need help, you can call him at 888-888-6582. He will help you. He's sincere. And I'll talk about Mr. Davis in a few minutes. But right now, I'd like to get started and try to cover topics I've been researching all day, listening to news about stories about our children and so forth, and the different ways that you're involved in. Now, not only do they traffic children, there's different kinds of trafficking children now, I notice. There's something I knew a couple of days ago called medical trafficking. Medical trafficking. That's where a caseworker takes the child from loving parents at the hospital and puts the child in foster care, only because the parents didn't like what the doctor said about their child as far as alternative method. They want an alternative method. They have the right to. Our children are protected by constitutional and civil rights, and one of them is the medical rights. We have medical rights of our children. We decide what doctors they see, what medication they take, or anything else. No one can control that. No one can control that. There has to be imminent danger to the children. I don't think social workers know what imminent danger is. Now, there are cases all the time about children being slammed against the wall because they're crying, or because the children are not behaving, so they're locked in the room for days. Yes, that is abusive. That is bad. That's intimate. But just because a parent has a hiccup, or because they're in foster care as a child and now they're grown up and they want to have other children, does not make it right for foster care to take these children. They really don't. And I've had many of you follow me every night. I don't know where you were this morning or tonight yet, but maybe you'll still come. But a lot of you were agreeing what I'm saying, and a lot of you have been on the show and talked about your cases. I had a marvelous chat with a woman who had a very bad relationship, and they were first trying to give her children to the bad relationship she had, the man, and they finally found out he was bad news. And there's all kinds of stories I've heard, and I'll relate those. I just need to cover some things that will help you out. And one of the things I want to talk about, we got somebody. Hey, Faye, I haven't seen you. I hope you're okay. Welcome, Faye. My host didn't show up, or my guest didn't show up tonight. So I'm open to a phone call if you like to talk. Faye is from Richmond, Kentucky. She told me some horrific stories. She was once a foster kid herself, and she's had a terrible time with her children, and I think she has an adult child that's a special need. And that's another thing. There's so many new complexions I learned about social workers and the child protection services. They have elder abuse, they have child abuse, and they have adult abuse. And CPS will interfere, with juveniles, but they also interfere with you taking care of your special need child. Or there's elder abuse where an elder person is not being treated right. And elder abuse starts at age 65. Adult starts at age 18. And children are from birth to 18. That's juvenile. But there's all kinds of squirrely things going. There's medical trafficking where they're taking children from the hospital. There's trafficking where social workers take them from your home. That all is wrong. That's wrong. And I will share more details about that in my podcast tonight. But I do want to welcome Faye. It's really encourages me that she's trying real hard to take care of her children and all the rest of you that have called in. I had one person even call in from Mexico City about his 2 girls in Missouri. So this broadcast is heard worldwide, and it's found on Facebook, and it's broadcast on YouTube, and the application is StreamYard. And it's a forum, open forum, and you can pretty much talk about your case in CPS. And hopefully the things that I tell you, they're from my own experience, either from firsthand experiencing or listening to others on this podcast. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm a very intelligent, loving father. I've had some hiccups in my life, and I've had things happen to me that are beyond my control, or I didn't, I've been down and out. I've lived in a car. I've been homeless. I've lost my home after working 40 years for it. And I've lost a child, too, that was stolen from me. At age 12, she was stolen. It just fathomed me how these people that want to work in social work don't have a heart. They're heartless. They got to be heartless. The only thing that steers them is the money, the bonuses. My social worker all the time talked about her Gucci purse. Every week she had a new Gucci purse. Or her eyelashes, her new eyelashes, or her makeup, or her clothing, or a BMW car. And it's all based around a bonus. It's all about keeping our kids in their custody. When children are taken in custody, the federal government, the state pays them X number of dollars. Today, one of the mothers told me that she used to work as a cashier in those cash check places. And she said there's a lot of foster care parents coming in. And one check, she said, was for $14,000 for one child that they were paying her. So I know there's a lot of money in foster care. The money is wrong because, it doesn't take 14 or 20,000. My children, the state or the federal was paying $20,000 per child. That's 3 children. That's $60,000. They're getting it off one family. You multiply time 100 family, that's $600,000. It's ridiculous what they do. It's ridiculous. There's over 1.5 million children being investigated. That is one child out of 20. That's one child out of 20 is being investigated. Think about that. I'm sorry, it's 3.8 million. I stand corrected. 3.8 million children being investigated. 3.8 million. That's more people than there's been in Gaza in the news. If a football stadium holds 100,000 people, and to do 3.8 million, think about how many football stadiums that is. And you've all seen football stadiums full of people. If each of them carry 100,000 people. And it takes 10 football stadiums for 100,000 for 1 million. You have a 3.8. So that's 10, 20, 30, almost 40 football stadiums. 40 football stadiums of children being investigated. That's not counting the parents. Faye was telling about how the CPS entity in her state, and she's from Richmond, Kentucky, misplaced or didn't know where the $390,000 went. $390,000 was missing, unaccounted for. You see, you have to understand, social workers, there's no accountability. There's no supervisors, no directors. Nobody is a watchdog over them. Just like there's nobody over the watchdog of how our money's being spent in the country. Now, we supposedly have a Congress that works hard, but somehow they are faced with every 6 months, they have to figure out how to pay the next bills, how they get to run out of money. And one of the ways to run out of money is the money being sent to child protection services, supposed to help out our children. And it's being missent. And that's where I think one of the money is being spent in our U.S. government. The other one is to religious fanatics. This is Utah. And they had a thing going where they're producing fuel. And because of the language, or because Utah, I had still trying to understand this, but they've been getting millions of dollars every year as a grant to help refine fuel. And they have not made one drop of fuel. It's a religious group. No one seems to know about these things. I don't know. I don't know where people have been. There's a movie that you all seen that came out last year that I saw, and some people have told me about it. It's called Freedom. And what's it about? It's about child trafficking. It's about where children are misled and kidnapped and then put on the streets of the world as work slaves and as prostitutes and sex workers. And these are children at 10, 11, 12. They're not teenagers yet, but they're taking. And this was a true story about a girl and a boy from Colombia that were seduced into um, into the market, and it shows everything explicit. It showed where this was an island off Asia, where supposedly adult men would get together and women there, adult women there were too, because they were helping part of it. And they children were brought in for the pure pleasure of men, you know, men that are like pedophiles or something. They like children. They like children. Um, Faye, are you hearing me okay? Grace, if you hear me, I have a black screen. I don't know what happened. You hear me, but do you see my picture? I don't see my picture. I don't know what happened. I don't see my picture. I don't know what happened. What happened? Okay. Am I still hearing? I was lost for a moment. I did sign in. Faye, do you hear me? I lost my producer. I can't seem to reach her. Do you still hear me, Faye? Do you see me, Faye? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Faye? Okay. All right. Thank you. I see it in private chat. I just was really startled because um, I suddenly disappeared. I got a black screen, and I thought someone was trying to block me, and maybe I was talking about a bad subject. I was talking about the sounds of silence. Excuse me, the sounds of freedom. And when it said the sounds of freedom, my screen went black. And I don't know why it did that. And so, um, we're having a storm. For all you listeners out there, I apologize for the technical difficulties I'm having. California is experiencing a big storm. It's been cold all day, rain clouds out there. We're supposed to get heavy rain. We have heavy snow in the mountains, and we're getting all our rain that we haven't had in 40 years all in one night. So I think it's interfering with the internet, even though I have fiber optics and am connected to fiber optics. It apparently is interfering. The storm is. I don't know. I apologize. And anyway, we were talking about the movie called Sounds of Freedom. And it's all about child trafficking. And it's for mainly sex trafficking is what it was. But it's where a young girl is abducted and then her brother tries to find her and her father tries to find her. And they enlist a U.S. Marshal to help them. It's a true story. But I'm really afraid that CPS has turned into something scary. We have a Congress of senators and representatives who are supposed to look after the United States. But lately, it seems a lot of the decisions they're making are not happening very well. And if all the agencies affected is this one supposed to protect our children, instead, it's been trafficking our children and everything. Now, I haven't talked about rule number 1, but rule number 1 is very important. And I wish I had done it when I opened my case. Rule number 1 says you must hire an attorney. The reason being is child protection services is the worst thing you ever come across. It's worse than a open heart surgery. If you can imagine what open heart surgery is, where you have all these vital organs and you're cutting open the body, that's what CPS is. It's like you're in Alice in Wonderland and you've fallen in the rabbit hole and you're going through door after door going nowhere. You meet strange things along the way on your travels. You have strange things happen. That is CPS. It's a spider spinning a very bad web around you, taking you in, taking your children in, ruin your life. Your life will never be the same again. You'll never be able to replace the lost time. It's really sad. So my rule number 1 is whenever it's possible or whatever is possible, you need to get an attorney. And people will say that. And I know the answer is I don't have money for an attorney. And I know you're talking some money on retention. $6,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 retainer. It's a very specialized field, family law is, and attorneys don't like fighting CPS because they're corrupt. They don't play by any set of rules. Even the dependency court is corrupt. The judges don't play by the rules. I mean, there was one attorney, a good attorney, was fighting up Bakersfield, and he was threatened by the judge that if you don't stop what you're doing, you're going to be disbarred from Bakersfield. And that was wrong. That's wrong to threaten. And the attorney was not out of line. The attorney knew how to fight CPS. And the attorney did know how to get your children back and has done civil lawsuits. But this Bakersfield judge was so corrupt. It's all money. Money, money, money is doing the talking. They're not there to help. They're not doing their job. They swear an oath, I think judges do, that to uphold and protect the citizens and follow the rules, the procedures, and the laws of the land. Instead, they broke everything. This being election year, and I don't mean to digress over my rule number 1, but this being election year, you need to go and vote for a judge in November. And vote for a judge that knows what he has a background in family law. My judge, in my case, knew nothing about family law, only knew about car repairs and lawsuits and automotive lawsuits. Now, what kind of judge is going to know about neglect or abuse of children or a family reunification? He did not whatsoever. It was a kangaroo court. It was pals, social workers and the judge, eating, going out golfing. The attorneys for the social workers are in cahoots. And worst of it, the public defenders were in cahoots too. The public defenders are not a lawyer. They say they are. They may have passed the bar exam, but they're starting out new. They may not be in family law, and they may have a caseload of 20 people as a public defender. They won't have enough time for your case. That's why you need to get an attorney at all costs. Just like the guy going through open heart surgery. He needs a professional medical doctor, a doctor that's taken medical school, a doctor that has done an internship, a doctor that's mentored another doctor before he'll go into your body. You don't want a lay person to do open heart surgery. You don't want, somebody, a beginning doctor or a doctor of the foot, do open heart surgery. Just like CPS, you need a professional attorney. And the attorney I'm talking about is Vincent W. Davis. Now, I tell everybody you need to make a list of 10 attorneys in family law. And from that list of 10, you narrow it down to 5 that are doing nothing but CPS cases and getting the kids back. And then when you call those 5, you want to interview them and ask them how many cases you want. Who are you reference to I could call to see how you did? Have you fought CPS? Have you done CPS? Have you done a lawsuit against CPS? Well, I have an attorney that meets all those categories. He's a family law professional attorney. He has fought CPS. He has gotten your children back. He's a trial attorney, and he has done lawsuits, both civil lawsuits in both federal and state courts. So that is a lot right there. And right now, you could call him at 888-888-6582. And his name is Mr. Davis. And I hired him. I had to wait a year and a half, but I hired him. I sold my home of 40 years. I sold. And I used that money to get my family back together, to help me out. And I wish I'd done it sooner. But, you need that attorney. So you can call him right now. And if you like him, you can retain him. Now, he is offering a 30-minute strategy session for $49.99. That's $49.99. That's $50. That he'll talk to you about strategies to fight CPS and get your children back or keep your children. So with rule number 1 is get an attorney. You be thankful that you did. And if you don't, it's going to be an uphill battle. Now, some parents are still hanging in there year after year after year. And eventually they do get their children back, but not after being ruined and not after a lot of money has been collected on behalf of your children. So don't forget rule number one. Don't forget rule number one. And I want to thank Mr. Davis for producing this podcast. And he can be reached at 888-888-6582. So anyway, I'm glad to have Faye here tonight in my room, and I hope other people join. I do try to talk, a little bit different, present things a little bit differently. I might as well give you the other two rules while I'm thinking about it. Rule number 2 is you need a notebook, a clean blank notebook that you're going to fill in all your incidents with CPS. It's going to be your CPS notebook. And on the first line, you put the date and the time, and you put who was involved in the incident. If it was a phone call or you met them or whatever it is, you put down the names: 2 police officers, 3 social workers, 2 code enforcement, 5 firemen, whatever the numbers of people there were. And if you know the names, that'd be great. Then the next line, you're going to describe the incident. And if it takes 2 lines, 3 lines, so be it. Then after you describe the incident, you want to describe the outcome. What happened? How did the thing settle out? And if you don't know the answer, leave a couple lines blank and come back to it later when you do know the answer. Keep in mind that they tell you that cases are done in 48 days. That's not true. It may be years. In my case, it was 3 years. They kept my case open. My children were stolen in 2015 and returned in 2017. And I've been fighting them since 2010 when I was laid off from my job at age 60 at no fault of my own. Now, I'm experiencing all this as an elder adult. And it's tragic how they treat an elder adult. Social service workers are supposed to treat elder adults with respect, and they don't. They're very harsh with me. They're very mean to me. And I've also heard from the person in our room that her son is an adult, a special needs son, and they've been rude to him. So I don't know what their problem is, but they're not for you. And I know that Congress would talk about it more, but we need to have them told about it. You need to tell your representatives out there, your senator and your representative, that, hey, something's bad happening in social service. I need your help. I need you. You need time to sit down and describe what happened, what the problem was. Take a deep breath. I always have to anyway, because it hurts so much inside, because I know exactly what you're going through. I feel for you. I feel for you and all my listeners out there. It's certainly interesting of the numerous of people I've talked to around the country and around the world. You all have something in common. You love your child. You wouldn't be calling on this show if you didn't love your child. And you want to be with your children. Studies have shown, cases have shown, the best parents are the biological parents of the children. And I know many of you are going through divorce or separation from your partner, whether it's a man or a woman or whatever the arrangement is. But they need both parents in their life. And you need to quit arguing and quit anything. You need to do something called a timeout. We do timeout with our children. But the mistake we sometimes do timeout with our children is after the timeout is over, we don't ask the child to come back and talk to us. We just tell them, okay, your time is out. That's not the right kind of timeout punishment. You need to discuss it. So if you and your partner are arguing at each other and venting or whatever the case would be, and you are starting to get close to be physical, it's time you do a timeout. Go for a walk along the beach or at a park. Do some type of relaxing activity. It is hard. It's hard. I know from talking to this podcast, I get all wound up by the end of the show. I feel like I run out of time and I feel like I'm not done very well. I had not helped off people. So I do thank you for your thumbs up and your love, your hearts and your emotions and your happy faces. But it's okay, sad faces. It's okay, that that you're hurting because eventually, if we stick together and the word gets out, we'll eventually change things for the better. We got to. We got to make changes. Now, with that notebook, you've been filling it out and doing the incidents. Keep in mind that you may have it for 3, 4, 8, 20, or 18 years if you have your child taken at birth. But you'll need to reference it and you need to use a highlighter to highlight things so you know what things to talk about, what things you're looking for. Like you can use a orange or a pink is something that's troubled. You can use a yellow or a green. Those are colors good. Blue doesn't work very well. You can't see the wording. Purple's the same way. But pink, orange, and yellow are good. Blue's not. Purple's not. But anyway, that's the rule number 2. Rule number 1 was attorney. Rule number 2 was a notebook. Now, the last rule I have, the rule number 3, is one that a lot of people don't do, including myself. When a social worker comes out to visit you or calls you on the phone, if it's a phone call, you get their name and number and say your attorney will get back to you. You do not want to discuss anything with them. You don't deny anything. You don't want to lead them on. You want to make it short and simple. Yes, no, and my attorney will get a hold of you. Or what is your name and number? And if you meet them in person outside of your home, then don't say very much. Say no, yes, whatever. And say, I'll have my attorney. We'll get back to you. Can I have your card? Kind of thing. Now, if you're inside your home and you hear that knock on the door, don't open the door unless you know the person, unless you want to gain entrance. They cannot break down the door unless imminent danger is taking place. If there's ongoing shooting or a child being smashed against the wall, the police will knock the door down. But you don't open the door. They have to have a warrant to come in your house to search. They have to have a warrant. And a warrant is a legal documentation that the CPS workers went into court and said there's imminent danger. They'll lie because, the judge is cahoots and they'll get that warrant. And then they'll go in your home and try to use something in your home against you. There's a lot of things with allegations. But rule number 3 is you say no to social workers, no to policemen, and don't let them in your home. Don't let them in your birthing room. A lot of these cases come up when you're at the hospital having your child, and there may be a caseworker on staff. You just tell the judge, you tell the doctor or the hospital rep to please get this person out of my room. They're not family members. In a birthing room, it should only be a nurse, your doctor, and your family members that you allow. You have to be calm to have a child. You don't need to be riled up. That is so sad of the stories I heard where it got so gross where a woman's having a child barely out of her uterus, out of her vagina, and the social worker picks up the child and runs out of the room with the umbilical cord hanging behind. That's how bad social workers have been. That's how bad they are. They don't need to go there. That child's not in imminent danger. They just take the child because they want to open a case and start collecting that $20,000 per child per month. That's wrong. That's wrong. So don't let them in. And, they can wait out in the lobby. The policeman will be with them. They can wait out in the lobby too. They don't have to come into the room unless you're in imminent danger. By you saying, I want to speak to my attorney. I want my attorney present. And the answer is no. They can't force anything on you. They can try to arrest you, but they're opening themselves up for a big mega lawsuit if you're Constitution violations. They first have to tell you what they're arresting you for. They have to show you they have the grounds to arrest you. Now, if you have a warrant out, they can arrest you. You got to be careful. There's little things that we can get tripped on. Like when you sign a ticket from a criminal event, yeah, you promise to appear in court. If you don't show up, then a warrant's out for you. That means anytime that you're stopped by police, they'll go search the records looking for warrants, and they'll take you. They'll impound your car and take you to jail. No questions asked. That's the law. So it's very serious. When you sign a ticket, they can make arrangements to be there or ask for extension. But there's been so many false arrests and so many people have been killed needlessly. There's been a lot of needless people being killed. Now, I know officers are trained to shoot, but I don't understand why they can't train to shoot. When they shoot, they can mimic in the foot or the leg. Why they have to go for the heart to instant kill? I don't understand the rationality behind that. I know it's scary out there. An officer pulls up to a car and a guy's got a gun concealed, and the officer leans his head in. The guy releases the gun and blows his head off. Yes, I know about those stories, but that's far and few. There aren't more than happening on 10 fingers. There may be, and there'll be a lot during the course of the year, but it is the norm. The problem is that kind of thing is sensational. It attracts interest. When people hear someone got shot, this is going to catch interest. No one can care less about a Boy Scout walking a little lady across the street. Who wants to know about Johnny Brown walking a little lady across the street? But I tell you, if somebody, trips or there's something wrong with a police officer, it's sensational news. We live on gossip. That's why we have all those gossip magazines, the National Enquirer, all these things in there, because they got sensational stories. That's why they like it, And it's really, really hard out there. I know it's hard out there. So I've talked about Rule 1, Rule 2, and Rule 3. Now, I like to go back at the beginning where allegations come in. Allegations are twofold. One is either by a layperson or a professional. In my case, it's by a layperson. It was a family member. My in-laws, for 5 years, were complaining that we're doing something to our children. Why? I lost my job through no fault of my own. I was trying to get work. I had big mortgage payments to pay for. I had a loan. I had a predator loan, a loan where they jump your income up and change your documents. A predator loan. It's terrible. And there's all kinds of things going on. There's a perfect storm. And my parents were dying, and I had all their belongings at my home, and I did not know they would accuse their belongings of neglect to my children in imminent danger because of furniture and boxes. It's terrible how they stretch things. It really is. It really is bizarre. This is a bizarre agency. I don't know how else to describe it. I keep hearing every day from people that come on my show by calling in at 626-698-0990. And they talk on my show. And there was one lady the other night that grew up terrible in foster care. And seems like the cities behind, they think incest is fine. They think mothers and fathers mothers and sons and fathers and daughters, it's okay to do incest, or brothers and sisters. They think adult entertainment's okay for teenagers or young children. They think prostitution's all great. They think there's nothing wrong with being a pedophile. I could not believe this woman telling about all these things that was happening in a small town in West Virginia. It was gross. Pedophilia is not That's not acceptable behavior. That's different than the norm. That's preying on young children. They haven't developed yet. They don't know what sex is. They have a wrong perception about sex is. Same thing with prostitution, your daughter or your son as a prostitute, or taking pictures of them and selling the pictures. A pedophile. A pedophile is an adult person that preys on children. It can be man or woman. There are women pedophiles as well as men pedophiles. Also, this thing called statutory rape. If you're under the age of 18, anytime you're with a minor sexually, it's called statutory rape, whether there was intercourse or not. And that can happen with any man or woman that's with a minor. And if two minors are doing it, they can get in trouble too. It's statutory rape when it's not consented. You got to be over the age of 18 to do sexual intercourse. And if you don't, it's statutory rape. And these are some of the cases I've heard about. It's really, really hard. It really is. Let me go over some topics that I've talked about in the past, and you may want to hear them again. One thing you're going to be faced with, that in child welfare cases, most of your constitutional rights don't apply. Did I hear what you said? They said? Yeah. They said the child welfare system rarely offers the same rights as the criminal justice system, leaving many families facing permanent separation without due process protection. Child Protection Service does not know what the Constitution says. They don't know what your rights are. They don't care what your rights are. Every child protection agency across the nation, and that's where I said they investigate families of roughly 3.5 million children, or 1 out of every 20 American kids. And the cases of government officials frequently accuse parents of wrongdoing. They enter the home illegally. If they didn't get your permission, it's illegal to conduct searches and interrogations. Why do they go into a woman's underwear drawer? Why do they go into things like that? That is wrong. They got to have a search warrant. And in the search warrant, it's very explicit. It says the date and time you're allowed to enter, the location where you're supposed to enter, what the allegations are, and what they're searching for. They have to identify all the information. If it isn't on the warrant, don't allow it. Stand your grounds. If they arrest you, you can get them for a false arrest. And what they find, they can be used against the parent by a state attorney in court. And the accused will face punishment, including often have their children removed from them indefinitely. Indefinitely. So you hear what I'm saying? Don't let them in. Do not let them in. Now, you want to know something you need to research? I want you to go to Welfare Institution Code Section 300B. In there, it talks about what they're looking for with the allegations. That is a very useful code to look at and study and learn about, because the allegations in my case were false. And a lot of the parents, they are false. Also, you need to look at the Welfare Institution Code. And you want to look at Division 2. It could be different in other states. I'm talking about California. And you want to look at delinquents and wards of the juvenile court. And it talks about dependent children and modification of court judgments. There's so much information on the internet that can help you, and it's free. And again, when Child Protection Services comes to your home, you want to take the accusation seriously. When you feel that the claims made against you are false, frivolous, or even malicious, you should still take the CPS investigation seriously. You just be very respectful to them and say no, and that you'll get your attorney to talk to them. The social worker can take your child if they find evidence supporting the claim, but you do have rights throughout the process. You have to know those rights. For instance, California Penal Code in California protects the identity of any person who makes a claim, stating the information must be kept confidential. Now, see, when allegations are made, either by professionals or lay people, they should be made in writing and sign the allegation, because people have a habit of hiding behind a phone and not being honest with the allegations. And that's what's so happened to so many of you, is that you're wrongly accused of the allegations. You're wrongly accused. Now, there's something coming when your children are taken at the safety meeting with the social workers. When they're taken, and I'm going to talk from experience, my children were taken to a shelter because they felt they were in imminent danger, and they're put in this shelter. And the shelter was next door to a juvenile prison. And the yard was fair game to the children there. They're supposed to be protected. Supposed to be protected. And my kids were placed in a dangerous situation. There also was a beehive that attacked children, stinging them. That's not protection. The place was dirty, overrun, and too crowded. And their idea of a school every day was to read a book. They weren't taken to their school of origin. I had one child that was going to a private high school, I had another child in middle school, another child in elementary school, and all three children were A's. And they all were in the STEM program. That's where they take a science class, a technology class, an engineering class, and a math class, because they wanted to do some technical jobs. One son wanted to be an astronaut. Another son wanted to be a robotic engineer. They have both hopes that they work on some part of the mission to Mars program. So they this shelter was so bad. And when I had my safety meeting, which I think was 4 days later, I sat there, and this is before I had an attorney or anything, and they said, "Have you made a list of family members you'd like to live in there?" And then we thought to ourselves, my wife and I looked, and we said, "How about your sister and her husband?" And we talked to them, and they said they would do it, but they didn't know it was going to be for a long period of time. They thought it'd be only for a couple months. Well, taking the kids to school, feeding them, clothing, and so that was a lot of work for them. So they didn't last long. And they were moved from family members into a group home. But I want to tell you something very important at that safety meeting, and this is for all you Native American Indians. You are the first immigrants to settle in the United States, and you are protected by the Constitution of the United States, and you have civil rights too. And one of them was ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act of 1979, that was passed. And what it did, because CPS was taking Indian children right and left so much, especially in California, that they were given to adoption because the Indian parents weren't that well educated and they were very poor and didn't have the help of attorneys. They said that if the children are registered or could be registered, or if the parents are registered, if they have to be native blood, could be registered, that they be turned over to the Indian tribe for them to place them children with family members, Indian family members that are not in there to make money, that really want to help the children and help correct the problem. That's what ICWA is all about. And I just want all the Indian people out there to recognize that, because it's something that they denied me. I'm a Lakota Sioux. My great-great-grandmother is a full-blooded Lakota Sioux. And they denied me entirely. They did not contact the Lakota Sioux. My tribe was the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota. But it is hard out there. It is hard out there. I have about 3 minutes left. I don't think anybody can call in now. It's really too late, so I'm going to take my phone number off. I want to again thank Mr. Davis for providing this podcast, and he can be reached for help at 888-888-6582. He also has a consultation for 30 minutes that he'll speak to you about CPS and getting your children back. And it's only $49.99 for $50. He is a family law attorney, and he's somebody that you should think about. You should get him. Now, again, don't forget the rule number 2, the notebook. And don't forget rule number 3, no to social workers and policemen. Don't let them in your home. Now, I know that we had a little bump in our show tonight. Somehow, either I lost it with the storm or something. So, again, I'm sorry if there was some interruption. But it looks like we got back together tonight. There's another podcast strictly after my podcast with no break in between. So I have to end my podcast pretty quick right now because they start at 8 o'clock and I started a minute or two later. So I'm going to tell you all, thank you very much for listening. I'll be again on tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I want to thank Faye for hanging in there with me from Kentucky. And please do not stop fighting for your children. God bless you. And this is Bob Pace signing off.